Book of the Dead becoming God in ancient Egypt. Birth of the Book of the Dead. The significance of the Book of the Dead vignettes. Part 1. The Book of the Dead was the most persistent collection of funerary literature in ancient Egypt. After its first occurrence on a coffin dating into the end of the 13th dynasty and on documents belonging to members of the royal family and court at the end of the 17th and beginning of the 18th dynasties, the tradition lasted more than a millennium and a half until its decline in the second half of the Ptolemaic period. Besides totally new redacted spells, the priestly editors of the Bede could absorb texts from the earlier predominant religious compositions, the coffin texts and the pyramid texts, which had no significant tradition for any accompanying images. Only one of the rare exceptions of images in the coffin texts found access into the new text collection. In spite of this, we cannot think of the Bede without its illustrations, which we conventionally call vignettes. The early Book of the Dead documents, mainly attested on large linen shrouds, record only a few vignettes, either rendered in color or in black outline drawing. They already seem to be important components of a Book of the Dead manuscript, although in a still limited program. However, no steady development can be noticed from poorly colored vignettes during the early production of Book of the Dead manuscripts to the full-color renderings of later manuscripts. Within the time span of a few generations, the limited repertoire of Book of the Dead vignettes increased considerably to accommodate the full range of spells. By the time of Thutmose III, the production of the large-dimensioned linen shrouds decreased substantially, having been substituted by papyrus scrolls, which were more convenient and practical for the scribes and artists of the workshops, and for the storage of the manuscripts. Papyrus became from then on the main medium for Book of the Dead manuscripts. A widespread increase of workshops arose all over Egypt, with numerous scribes and artists who had to meet the higher demand of the members of the social elite for Book of the Dead scrolls as the most effective and protective guides through the netherworld. To meet this demand, model texts, patterns for the layout and the imagery program had to be distributed. Especially in the 19th dynasty, master copies and model books of vignettes found access into the wall painting of Theban tombs, where we see a strong dependence on the iconographical patterns also in use for Book of the Dead manuscripts. Not each of the 190 attested Book of the Dead spells had a vignette, but most basic key themes expressed in writing were realized with appropriate imagery. Once the iconographic model of a vignette was established, it could be transmitted over time, sometimes without changes or only modified by stylistic features. In the long course of the Book of the Dead tradition, new motifs for vignettes could be developed and become popular, while others were neglected and did not live to see later periods. In the 18th dynasty, the majority of vignettes showed motifs, which seem to be more realistic than the more formal and stylized images found later. These explicit pictures often express the key message of the spell's heading or the essential idea of the spell.